Hey guys, welcome back to Driven Channel, and I have one of my best friends in the world right here. Good guy, good-looking guy. You're single, right?
It depends on how you define single. You know what I mean? It's just, like I said, semantics, semantics, semantics.
Yeah. And he makes a lot of money if I haven't said that. But I want to jump into this because we had a part one. But all jokes aside, Chris, I'm really grateful for your friendship.
Likewise.
You know, I like what you do.
Appreciate it.
Very
Likewise.
proud of you. You're very successful, very intelligent. One of the hardest workers that I know.
Appreciate it.
Before I give you your quick intro, I want you to let people know who you are. But we had a part one, so make sure you look at part one. Timer on, please, clicker, and watch part one so that you can see, like, when we talked about how Chris started in the mortgage industry, but you've been in this for 22 years.
Yeah, 22 years this May.
And you've been top AE in the nation for the last 4 years.
Yes, sir.
And now you're a managing partner over there at Forward Lending.
Correct.
So before we jump into that, in your own words, like, who is Chris besides a mortgage person that's had so much success in the mortgage industry?
I mean, just a hard worker. I mean, regardless of, Albert, if I was scrubbing toilets or, which I was at one point, you know what I mean, manual labor, just a hard worker. Like I said, I don't think anybody would ever confuse me for being a genius. I don't think anyone would confuse me for having any artistic merit or athletic talent. I just really believe, you know what I mean, if there's one thing anybody could have, if there's one trait, if God said, Chris, I'm going to give you any trait in the world that you want, and I'm going to make you the best at it, I think it would be just give me a strong work ethic, God, and I could figure out the rest.
Yeah. But let's jump right into this. Right now, mortgage is a lot of mortgage people are struggling. The rates went up a lot versus how they used to be in 2021. Everybody had a great year. A lot of people are quitting mortgage. There's a lot of lenders that are doing bad. I don't know. Like, I would say that it's scary, and it's one of the most difficult times in mortgages right now. And what would you say to that? And on a follow-up question, how are you still having, like, one of your best? Last year was one of your best years, and it was a pretty challenging year versus the last couple of years before that. You're still doing very well. Like, how are you doing that? And what would you say to those people that are maybe struggling in mortgage? Well, how is it day and night for different people?
Well, in regards to the first question, talking about, the market and where rates are at right now. I mean, if you look at the past, I think 50, 60 years, the average interest rate's 9%. Right now we're at, I think, a little over 7% as of today. I know back in maybe, I think, mid-October, I think we kind of touched 8%. So in terms of rates being high, I mean, if you think about it, are they higher than they were the past couple of years? Sure. But historically, are rates high? No, not really, right? Now, one thing I've always touched on, and I've touched on this subject a lot the past couple of years, is rates are important in our business, but they're not everything, right? And so a lot of times when people ask me, Chris, what are the rates at like today, or did they go up or did they go down? I don't know. In a way I do know, but it's not really something I pay attention on, because if rates drop back down to 4-3%, which they're not going to happen in our lifetime, that won't happen. But if they did, it wouldn't matter. I still got to wake up as early as I do. I still got to put in that same 100% effort, etc. So if rates go to 8%, 9%, it might change some of the strategy, but it's not really going to change the effort, right? If anything, right, it might enhance the effort, right? But it's not going to change that. Now in terms of, people having a hard time, it is a difficult time. I don't think it's the toughest time I've ever seen. I would say, going back to the subprime days, that might be tougher. What might make this a little bit easier for me is, since I've seen a market crash, and I'm not saying this is one, but, it's certainly not good. And, we can kind of touch on that later. But, I'm just going to stay focused on what I can control, right? The people I reach out to, my existing clients, new clients, that's what I stay focused on. And that's the advice I would give to anybody. Now, because I've seen some turbulent times, everything is kind of happening for me more in slow motion.
Yeah.
I was better prepared. Now, if this interview was taking place, back in 2007, 2008, my mind might have been racing so fast. I don't know if I'd be doing as well. I know the work ethic would be there, but I'd be taking a lot more lumps and bruises then than I am today.
What do you say, because of the experience?
Yeah, I would say, from
Now
experience.
you're prepared for it because you've dealt with it?
Yeah, I'm a slow learner. So, maybe I had to go through those hard
Yeah.
times to prepare me for this time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. So, yeah, because I took those lumps, now I'm kind of, as things are starting to happen again, it's like in slow motion. So, okay, I'm seeing this happen. So this should probably happen next. And after this, and just even how, certain people are reacting. It's like, yeah, I remember people starting to panic and, hit the escape cord or, become a deserter, et cetera. Yeah, I've seen it.
So what are a few things you're doing right now differently than you did in 2008 and other hard times throughout the last 20 years?
I think I hedged my bets a lot better. When the market was good for me from maybe after the market crash back in 07, 08, I would say maybe from like 2013, 2014 on. So I think I was wiser in my investments, wiser in my saving. But I think the thing that I was probably the wisest on was the people I surrounded myself with. I don't think that I saw the value in relationships. I didn't view relationships as a commodity back then as I do now. I think back then, and it's call it my immaturity, I would want to be the smartest person in the room or the smartest person in that conversation. And now the last thing I want to be is, if I'm the smartest person in any room, I got to get out. This is not a good room, right? Or if I'm the smartest person in the conversation, I'm not learning. So I think that's really helped me a lot, just making sure that the relationships I have and the people around me, not to knock any of the relationships, et cetera, that I had in the past, but I think I've done it more strategically and have just kind of found that like-minded people, ambitious people, that's really what I need to gravitate
What have you
towards.
done, and what do you do now to get into better relationships and better rooms?
I think how I spend my time, spending my time a little bit more wisely, just kind of like, am I going to get anything out of this, relationship? And what I mean by that, I'm not talking about in a selfish way or an ulterior motive way, but it's like, I met somebody at one of your events earlier in 23, right?
Yeah.
Mickey, and just what I've learned, every time you and I grab lunch or grab dinner or grab a drink, like I always walk away feeling a little bit smarter. So I think since I have such little spare time, when I am spending it, it's like, man, obviously I want to have a good time, but also, am I going to walk away with maybe, talking about business and walk away with an idea that I didn't have when I first showed up? So I would say that's kind of one of the things,
Yeah. And for example, right now you said rates will not go down to a 4.5 in our lifetime. Is it? They won't?
I doubt it. I think, guys, if the pandemic hadn't have happened, right? And again, I always say this, I always preface it with, whether you believe in COVID or not, I'm not going down that road. But, obviously the pandemic happened, right? Whether you believed in it or not, right? If that had never happened, there's a lot of people that wouldn't have a 3% interest rate right now or a 4%, right? Maybe rates might have been around 5%, 6%, but we wouldn't have seen that boom. So I'm not saying it can't happen again. I would never say never, but the likelihood is pretty slim. If we were in Vegas and you said, Chris, should I hedge money that we'll see rates, at 3% in my lifetime? I'd be like, I don't know if I would. I'd maybe swing that bet another way. So I kindly doubt it.
But aren't they saying the rates are going to go down like 3-4 times this year? Do you see them going down a lot?
I don't. Again, and this is something I'm very, very open and honest about. Like, I'm a big nerd when it comes to data and what the data is telling me, and what world news is telling me right now is no. I don't think we've won the battle on inflation. We've had some early wins. You know what I mean? Or maybe the expression, you won the battle but not the war.
Yeah.
I think we've won some battles, but certainly not the war. And Jerome Powell, he's a sharp guy and he's a cautious guy. And I think him and the Fed want to see these inflation reports, this inflation data, they want to see it lower for longer, because it would be a big mistake. And if anybody watched that 60 Minutes interview with Jerome Powell, or just paid attention to anything him or anybody else at the Fed who votes over the past couple years, right? They want to be cautious, and they know that dropping rates too quickly would cause inflation to shoot right back up, and we'd be no different in the situation that we are today than we were back in 2022 when this fight started.
Yeah, because you said rates are normal right now,
Correct.
but prices have never been this high though.
Correct.
So it's different having these rates with a way lower price. Right now, the rates are normal, but they're still a 7, but prices are like super high right now. So where do we go from here? Because people are being very careful with selling their homes to buying something new because of right now they're stuck at a 2%, 3%, 4%. So how do we battle? Like if you're a loan officer right now, how are you going to win in today's world with prices being as high as they are and a 7%?
I mean, how you're going to win, you're not going to see the success that you had over the past couple of years. And this is kind of something I've talked about where, if you were in this industry when things were tough or when they were good and then got tough and got good again, you're going to be better suited. But if you got in this industry when it just started off in the ascendancy, you don't know what tough times are. You don't really know how good your sales skills are. You're finding out now, but you really don't know. And some people are natural, some people aren't. So like the best advice I could give, besides like effort, et cetera, right? And, I've talked about this a lot, like what kind of information are you giving your clients? Are you making yourself a resource for information that can help them make better decisions? Or are you just always talking about rate? Because again, rate is important in our industry, but it's not everything, right? Maybe, if you cut it up into a pie and, the pie's full 100%, maybe rates are 30%, of importance to everything. Yeah. So, the best advice I would give, right, is, you have to let the borrowers know it's not about when there's a right time to buy. It's when there's a right time to buy for you. And again, I know that's a cliche expression, but unfortunately, it just happens to be true. If you want to wait for the rates to drop, and if you're a potential borrower, right, and I'm your loan officer, I'd say, you could do that, right? But as you're waiting for those rates to drop, if they do, right, you might be in more debt by the time, that rate gets to that point that you want it to be at, and now you can't afford to buy. That house in that neighborhood you want to buy in might be up another 7, 8, 12%. Because the biggest challenge that we have is in interest rates, right? The biggest challenge that we have is inventory. Yeah. And that's not going to change anytime soon.
So if we're at 7% right now, more or less, where do you see it being at the end of the year if you were a betting man? Like, how low can they? Do you think they're going to be lower by the end of the year, or do you think they'll stay around 7?
I think it'll stay around 7. Maybe the 6s. It'll stay around 7. I think we'll know a lot more by the end of summer. So if you were if loan officers are watching this, you would tell them, hey, go out there and sell what do you have right now and close deals right now because it's not going to get any easier by the end of the year? I would give that advice if rates were at 17% or 7%.
I think a lot of them are waiting for rates to come down.
You're making a mistake. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter what the rates are, if they're 17% or 3%. Your job is to go out, get loans and fund loans and put people in houses and build relationships. So what difference would it make, what rates are? It's not like, well, hey, I bought a snowboard and I'm not going to use it till it snows. I mean, okay, that makes sense, right? But you're not snowboarding. This is your job, right? That'd be no different than if you worked at a restaurant and said, well, I'm not going to bust the dirty tables because we don't have any customers in here. But when customers start coming in, I'm going to clean some of the tables. Yeah. If your job is to bust tables, just bust tables. It's like the analogy that I always use, if you're a server, for instance, and if I'm your server and you ordered a burger and fries, I'm going to bring you ketchup regardless if you asked for it. You ordered fries. There's a high likelihood you want ketchup. I'm going to bring you ketchup. So same thing if you're a loan officer. Barbecue? Then you got to ask for the barbecue. You know what I mean? But I know you want ketchup. I know you want, Heinz, right? You might be a Hunt's guy.
Is it ketchup or ketchup?
It's ketchup.
Is that how you call it? Ketchup?
I say ketchup.
Is it ketchup or ketchup?
I say ketchup. I don't know.
I, I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe you'd want Tapatio. You know, if I saw you, I wouldn't bring you ketchup. I think I'd bring you a bottle of Tapatio. I think that'd be something that you'd want. But I think that's kind of it. So that any loan officer, any realtor, forget the rates. It doesn't matter. Your job is to still, if you're a realtor, to find people's houses, sell people's houses. You know, again, build relationships. It wouldn't matter to me. The rates.
Find the way you say ketchup.
It's spelled
But
C-K-E.
Ketchup.
But going back to the inventory, that's an important topic. You said inventory is not going to improve anytime soon.
Correct. You know,
So because if that doesn't improve, then that means there's going to be a lot less homes, because we went from like 6 million homes sold to like 4 million last year.
less than 4 million this year, as Fannie Mae is projecting.
So this year you're saying less than 4 million?
That's what Fannie Mae is projecting. So again, you know,
You're not guaranteeing that.
I don't think anybody's guaranteed
Yeah.
it. What I'm doing is, and what I always do is, you know, I read
Yeah.
things that are written by people smarter than me that have done more research, and then I put it all together, and then I make my
Because
decision.
I think it is going to be less than 4 million.
I
It's
agree,
It's
yeah.
going to be less than last year, right?
Yes, yeah, it will probably reach the lowest amount of home sales that we've seen since 1994.
Because I just don't think anybody that has a 2%, 3% sales unless they're forced to.
Yeah, it'd be difficult because, you know, you might have, if you bought a house in 2020 or 2021, the rate and the purchase price that you got, shoot, if you were to sell that, you know, you're not going to get a payment in the house in the same neighborhood that's going to be similar. Shoot, you might not even find rent that's similar. So you find a lot of people that are almost in a sense locked into that home,
Yeah.
based off of circumstances.
Those people are better off getting credit lines.
Yeah, they're better off, you know what I mean, maybe taking out a close-end second, you know, something of that sort if
Yeah.
they need cash.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have a lot of Americans that aren't going to sell.
So that's obviously something we can't control. We can't control people
No.
that are not going to sell because they have a 2, 3%.
Correct.
Even a 4%.
Correct.
So we just have to focus on what we could control, which is let's find a way to get the business that's out there, because even if it's 3.5 million homes being sold this year, it's still 3.5 million homes being sold. It's still a lot of homes. So
Correct.
maybe there's other states you can look into for more to make up for the difference. What is your advice right now to to loan officers watching this? There's less inventory. That's not going to change. You just told everybody right now, rates are not going to go down. They're going to stay around the same, or at least maybe they'll go down a tiny bit, but it's not going to be like people are thinking, it's going to go down like 1%,
Right,
1.5%. So then if we know that, and if we prepare mentally, it's going to get maybe a little bit uglier before it gets better. So what are the strategies that you would give people out there?
The strategy that I would give, you know, to any loan officer, any realtor, et cetera, right, is the work you're putting in today, you're not going to yield the results anytime soon, right? So let's just call it what it is. We're going to be in a very stagnant period. And stagnant's better than, you know what I mean, than a crash, right? So let's just call it stagnant, and that's what I think it'll be. You know, but again, that could change at, you know, any given day, any given month, et cetera, right? So the work that you're putting in, the effort you're putting in, you got to look in the future, right? You got to look, man, I'm putting this effort for August of 25, for March of 26, right? Because again, who knows when we'll see like an upswing, right? Back in our business, right? So the effort you're putting in, you just got to be okay with the fact that I'm not going to see those results anytime soon. It's almost like when you're investing in stocks, right? And you know, with the exception of a day trader, right? You're buying stocks, you're buying, if you're buying an investment property to hold, you know, it's not about today or next week or next month. It's like, what's this property going to be doing for me 10 years from now? What's this stock trading at? Where's this stock going to be trading at 10 years from now? How many times are we going to see that stock split, et cetera? So that's the best advice, is just go in with the mindset. It's going to be tougher before it gets better, right? But if you put in the time, you put in the effort, you give 100, that's really where you're going to see the benefit. Might be a couple years, might be 3 or 4, might be next week. Wouldn't matter. The 100% effort is really what's going to count.
Yeah. What if prices go down?
What if prices go down?
You think prices could go down soon?
I don't know soon. I don't know if I'd put a timetable on it, but I mean, you know, what goes up must come down. We all know that. So eventually at a certain point, you know, we might see it like plateau. We might see prices increase, but maybe at more of a gradual pace. but eventually they're going to have to come down at some point.
What do you say, 5, 6, 7 years from now, or 2, 3 years from now?
I'd be reluctant to say, just due to the fact that so many different things could change. I think the situation we're in is a little unprecedented, again, because of the pandemic. So it would be tough to say, who ends up in the White House, world events, with some of the conflicts that we're seeing in Ukraine and in Israel, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of different things that'll kind of factor in. I'd be reluctant to put a time frame on it,
But you know what? Even in the hardest times, there's always people killing it.
Agreed. Yeah.
We just had a guy here that made over 120K last month.
Attaboy.
Loan officer.
Okay.
And he funded I think like almost in the high 5 millions, almost
Okay.
6 million. And he's killing it. And he's so busy. So how is it that, and maybe you know what, you're also killing it. You're the top AE for the last 4 years. You just partnered with Forward Lending.
Mm-hmm.
You took a bigger role there. I don't know if you want to talk about how you did that, but you're killing it at that AE level and partner level of a lending company. I have a loan officer that I just mentioned. He's killing it. So how is it that most loan officers went from closing 15, 20 loans a month to closing 1 to 2 loans a month? Because I look up their data. But then we also have the 1%ers that are absolutely crushing it, having their best year right now. Like how is that? And maybe you could talk more about how you're doing it.
Well, this specific individual, right? Like, I'm sure if you ask this loan officer what he or she is doing, right, I'm sure they would tell you that they're just sticking with the fundamentals and grinding out and blocking out the negative, if you will, vibes, the negative info. Again, not that I'm sure they're not blind to it or ignoring it, but at the end of the day, this individual still got to get up and still got to sell and still got to build relationships, right? And, they found their niche. The one thing that's crazy about sales, and, speaking for myself, I could be on a roll for 5 to 7 days where just things are going right. Could be 2 weeks, could be maybe only 2 days, and then you just have a string of 1 or 2 bad days or 3 or 4. And this sounds like this person's just in a really good groove, right? And what that person's going to find out is the higher you go, the harder it is to keep it up. But it sounds like this person is on the right path. And if we called him or her in here and we brought him in, I'm sure they would just tell you, hey, look, I'm just going for it with reckless abandon, right? Because what else are they going to do?
Yeah.
Just kind of like I mentioned earlier, what else are you going to do, right? To say, oh, well, things are tough, so I'll just kind of to go backwards and backpedal. No, you can't back into a street fight. And it sounds like this person's not doing that. They're going full steam ahead.
Yeah, so you go out there and you prospect.
Correct.
Right? You still prospect, even though you've been in this industry for 22 years.
Always.
But don't you have a large database where you don't have to prospect anymore?
I do, but I feel the lifeline of any business is adding new clients, right? You could look at any large corporation, right? Whether it's Apple, whether it's Nike, obviously they're always trying to attract.
How many clients have you added in the last 6 weeks?
I've now added new brokers. I think I'm now at 11 new clients, and we're 6 weeks into the year, right? And I've added 11 new brokers at a very difficult time. When, seasonally, the beginning of the year is always tough, right? And then you throw in the fact that business is slower, so it makes it even that much tougher. But because I know that going in, it just means I'm going to have to put in more effort, right? Or find different strategies. And again, that's why I'm always really keen on making sure you're keeping abreast of data and what's going on in your market, so you know what kind of strategy to approach. So the playbook this happened to me in spring of last year, right? And I went through a little bit of a rough patch, not a rough patch like bad, like in life, but just the playbook that I was running in 19, 20, 21, and 22, it just wasn't working anymore. And I had to recalibrate how I was running my desk and how I was doing business. And so I literally took a step back from going out in the field, and I had to rearrange how I did my desk, right? And yeah, it came at the expense of some relationships. It happens. It's unavoidable. You try to avoid it, but it is what it is.
So
right?
what was not working?
I think the deals were tougher. Deals are always tough, but the deals just got tougher because there's fewer deals, and a lot of you guys, right? Loan officers, I don't care who the company is, where they're at, the deals are tougher. So they had to work tougher loans and try to make those loans that maybe they would have passed on in the years past. They had to make them work. So it consumed more of my time, right? Where, as a lifeguard, maybe I only had to jump in the pool or jump in the ocean once a day. You know what I mean? Now I had to jump in 4 or 5 times a day. So it really changed, how I went about trying to originate new business. And I had to change that. Unfortunately, it took me a couple of months. I think I really started to feel it in May of last year. And it really took me 2 or 3 months to kind of really figure out, okay, dude, throw away the playbook, burn it. You got to start all over.
So how'd you figure it out? What'd you change?
What I changed was just how I approached my day. Like, I've always been an early starter, but I mean, shoot, now you'll see me sending out emails at 3:30, 4 o'clock because I got to prep even more because I have to be involved in more loans, right? Even though there's fewer loans, I have to be involved in more loans, right? So that was one of them. Just kind of how I was controlling the desk, right? Certain clients, how I approached them, how I helped them structure. So there were things like that. And then right around October, I was like, okay, I think I got the hang of it. Now I can go back out in the field and originate. And now I got a good feel for it. And again, I'm always upfront and blunt. Yeah, there were some relationships that were damaged. Fortunately, probably 85% of them were salvageable, and things are rocking and rolling. But there were some that were lost, and hopefully they come back.
Why were they lost?
I think they were lost. I think because in the fog of war, if you will, I'm always upfront. I probably could have done a better job of communicating with them. Hey, things got to change. Things are going to take a little bit longer, or hey, we need to work on this X, Y, and Z. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it happens, but, like Bill Gates said, our greatest source of learning is from our dissatisfied clients. So some people had to be dissatisfied in order for me to learn, okay, man, you did that wrong. You did that wrong, Chris. You should have done better here. I'm a big believer as a leader. When things are going good, give credit to your team. But when things go bad, take the blame. When people ask me, man, things are going good, how do you do it? Team, surrounding myself with good people, team, because it's true. And when things are going bad, I could have done this differently. I think sometimes in life when...
So nobody in your team ever fucks up and it's their fault?
They fuck up, but if they fuck up, it's my fault. It's not their fault, right? When you're getting the big paycheck, right?
You
take the blame.
But you get rid of those people.
No, I'm a big believer. I look at the whole body of work. No, I've gotten rid of some people for just repeated mistakes, but I look at someone's work, if someone's gone above and beyond and they make a mistake, it happens.
But if they do make the mistake like 2-3 times, and then you do have to correct, you have to get rid of them.
Yeah, you look at what did I do wrong? Where did I fail to reach them? Or where did their direct manager that I put in charge of them, where did they fail to reach them? What could we do better? And if we've exhausted all that, I'm like, man, fuck, with the exception of, doing the job for them, you got to go.
Yeah.
Right. So does that happen occasionally? But I think if you ask my business partner or you ask people that work for me, they'll be like, man, there was someone that maybe he should have let go of.
Yeah. And
I didn't. And it worked out. I'm a big believer in the entire body of work.
So are you still waking up right now at 3:30?
Yeah. Sometimes 3:30, 4 o'clock. Yeah, absolutely.
And what time do you go to sleep?
So again, this is one of the things that I tweaked. I'm probably going to bed earlier than I was. And I found that the earlier I've gone to bed, the hours in the day that I'm working really haven't changed. But I'm going to bed earlier, right? Instead of trying to I'm going to do it on 4 hours sleep. I found if I do it on 7.5 hours sleep, when I wake up at 3:34 on the clock, I have so much energy. I'm getting even more done.
So you're sleeping more now?
Sleeping more, yeah.
What time are you sleeping?
8? Man, there's some times.
Maybe that's why you don't answer me at 8.
Yeah, that's probably why. That's probably why. If I can get to bed like at 8 or 8:30, I'm loving life. There's nothing, and I don't think there's one person that would disagree. When you go to sleep and you wake up and you think you've been asleep and it's 4 a.m, and then you wake up and it's only 11:30, you're like, yes, I got 4 more hours, 5 more hours of sleep. It's the best feeling. So yeah.
And being single allows you to do that.
Yeah, I have a cat. You know what I mean? If my cat heard me say that, she's a very jealous cat. I've never seen a cat this jealous before. she doesn't. She's probably not going to listen to this podcast. You know what I mean? So she won't know. But yeah, she
yeah.
gets jealous. Yeah.
So right now, would you say right now that you're working harder than ever, or you're working smarter? Because
Both.
both.
Yeah, harder and smarter.
Because you go through a lot of pressure in your day, right? Well, the question is, how do you deal with the pressure? Because you might not see it or accept it, but you have so many loans, so many mortgages that you're working on, and then you have also a lot of other reps in your company. So there's a lot of business. I'm sure there's a lot of fires that happen, so that you got to fix. So when that happens, how do you deal with that pressure? Because you do a really good job at it.
So I have a very, very dear friend.
I never see you stressed out.
I'm not a stressed person, right? I don't think in the history of any problem ever in the course of mankind, stress has never solved that problem. Like I'm a big believer, like, right, let's just stay calm, right? I'm not saying that emotions don't kind of come in, right? But stress isn't the answer, especially when it's someone else's stress that they're trying to pour on me. Like, keep that. You can keep your stress over there, right? Stress is self-induced, right? I was in your parking structure today, and I have a loan, and the loan officer wasn't aware of a guideline change that Fannie Mae made at the beginning of the year. Long story short, it affected their DTI. Said, I'm going to need a few days to fix this, right? But I'll come up with a solution. You'll be fine, right? In the meantime, I think there's like 2 or 3 transactions, like, hinging on this. And she called me up today, and she's like, that the realtor's stressing me out. And I was like, no, you're stressing yourself out. You're allowing the realtor's stress to pour into you, and now you're trying to pour that into me. And I was like, you could tell that realtor to go fuck herself, right? I don't care. Because she's like, well, the realtor wants to know by 5 o'clock today. And I'm like, I'm a real defiant person. If you're going to give me an ultimatum, now I'm definitely not going to do it, right? So that's like, don't tell me that there's an ultimatum. But what you could tell the realtor is, hey, this thing is going to get closed. There was a guideline change. Let her know that you were unaware of it, but it's fixable, and chill out. But if the realtor wants to find a new lender and start the transaction all over again, they can. But how ignorant that would be, because if you're pressured to close it now, realtor, right, then let my client close it out for you. But you want to start all over, let us know. We'll get that appraisal transfer letter sent out ASAP and move on, and we'll be fine, right? So there's that. In regards to how I look at it and how I deal with it, like, I'm just going to do the best I can. And going back, I have this really good friend. His name is, Rabbi Knopf. He's a rabbi, and he's a judge in the Judaical court. And, he told me, Chris, he's like, I'm in the business to disappoint people. It's not his goal, obviously, but people are going to come in front of him, whether they want a divorce or whether there's a dispute. And one person is probably going to leave happier than the other, right? That's just the business. So I just know that every day I'm going to disappoint people. Now, my goal is to make more people happier than disappointed, but it's impossible that I'm going to make everybody 100% happy. If one of your loan officers called me and asked me for a rush and I'm like, okay, I'll do it, that means I'm pushing someone else's loan behind. If another loan officer called me for a rush and I got to push one of your people's loans behind, they're going to, you know what I mean? I'm not going to make everybody happy. And if I say yes to every favor that I get requested of on a daily basis, I'm going to make nobody happy.
Yeah. But you've been the top AE for the last 4 years, meaning that you've closed the most deals of any other AE in the nation, right?
Yes.
So if there's a deal that's tough and they want to, and it's like do or die, maybe life situation, probably the person that could close it is going to be you. So why do these realtors and loan officers get all crazy about, like, hey man, you got to do it by 5 p.m. or they're going to cancel? Like, if we're having issues, they're not going to send it somewhere else and get better results. Like, wouldn't they understand that with your track record?
No. Because people panic. I mean, how do I know that person, right? What if their car payment, kids' tuition, and everything is hinging on that? That's not my fault that they're not a saver. It's not my fault that they overextend. Or
you're talking about the realtor or the
loan officer, or whomever, right? I closed a loan. This is a funny story. I closed a loan, I want to say beginning of this year. And the deal had fallen out somewhere else, and it landed across my desk. And the borrower, they were, I think, a pastor, right, or some type of, church guy. And the loan officer kept telling me, like, man, just having a hard time, and the pastor, that they're losing faith, right? You know what I mean? They want to cancel, they're losing faith. I'm like, man, I don't go to that church, because, you know what I mean? What would he tell me? Hey, my marriage is failing. What should I do? You know what I mean? Oh, you should quit. You should get a divorce, right? And the deal closed, right? And I didn't get an opportunity to talk to this borrower, but I wanted to tell him, like, man, have some faith. Practice what you preach. I've never been to your church, but I'm assuming on Sunday you're talking about faith, right? And so, long answer to a short question, but sometimes people just react that way. They don't know. And like I said, I can't really focus on if they're getting stressed. It's just, I'm going to do the best I can. And sometimes I disappoint people, but more often than not, I don't. But if I do, hopefully I get another crack at that shot. That's it.
Would you say that prospecting has been the number one thing that has kept you at the top for so many years?
Yeah, always. I mentioned there was a AE that I used to work with back at New Century. His name was Nima. And the one thing he told me is just loans, subs. Just get more submissions, get more loans, add more business, right? So again, it wouldn't matter if you were a hairstylist, you would want to have more clients, if you're the ice cream man, you know what I mean? You're going to want to ring that bell a little harder, get more kids to
Because let's just say some of these accounts, they could get maybe pissed off over a deal, and then they're like, oh, Chris, I don't want to work with you anymore. But if you keep adding 10 times more than the people that get upset and cry about it, then you're always going to be in a good standing, because you're always going to be adding more, right? Is that the way you look at it?
Yeah, obviously the goal is to not have that happen, but it's going to happen. Now, a lot of my clients know if a deal doesn't get done, you know what I mean? They look at the whole body of work. And the same thing for them, if they submit 10 good loans and they got one loan that's maybe not the best loan or tricky, or maybe if they have 3 or 4, it's not for me to be like, oh man, well, I don't want to work with you anymore. Your deals are too hard. All deals are hard now. It's my job to keep the relationship going, and it's theirs. And I think that's why I've been fortunate, is because I have some really, really strong relationships with clients, where if things go bad for them, it's my job to pick them up. If things go bad for me, it's their job to, keep me going. That's really what it is. And I think sometimes salespeople, they're very transactional.
Right.
They're not looking at the relationship. They're looking at that specific transaction, right? Whereas I look at my clients as relationships, right? So that transaction isn't as important as the 10 loans that came before it or the 10 loans that will come after it, right? And so I think that's a mindset that a lot of people need to change, is don't be so transactional. Focus on the relationship. Because honestly, some of the best relationships that I have in this business are transactions that got tough. And they're like, no, man, this dude kept his cool. He kept his word. He came through. You know what I mean? And so if something doesn't go right because of all the good work I've done in the past, right, they're like, no, man, this relationship's too valuable. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Well, just move on to the next one, right?
Yeah, well, that's why you have a lot of loyal LOs here that send you everything.
Yeah, correct.
So sometimes, they just want to work with you no matter what. Even if they might get a better rate.
Correct.
Or better pricing, which I'll explain why this makes sense, because I know most people watching this are like, oh, well, the ethical thing to do is go with the best pricing for the client. However, there's other lenders that they might offer better rate, better pricing, but it's almost like 50-50 they close the deal, because they're so limited in what they can do, and they submit a loan there for better pricing, but then it falls out of escrow, or then they have to resubmit it because they just can't do a type of deal, or the underwriter messes up because the underwriter is not very they're just not very savvy, very experienced. They don't understand the guidelines well. This happens with some of those big lenders. So then it comes back to you, and then you help us restructure the file in the way it should have, or maybe the underwriter made a mistake. So long story short, with you, even though maybe the rate's not going to be like the top best rate offered, but you're going to be close to that. We know that with you, you're going to be straight up like, hey, you know what? I can do this deal, or hey, I cannot do this deal. But then when you say you could do this deal, sometimes there is issues that happen, but you always, at the end, you always
We
close
sort
it,
it out,
whether
yeah.
it takes a few extra days or it closes on time, but you always deliver.
So I think one thing that you touched on. No, it's in the best interest of the loan officer to make sure the deal closes for the borrower.
I
right?
think that's more ethical.
Correct. Yeah,
to make sure
that's
you
more
close
ethical.
the property
Because
than,
there's no point in telling this client, yeah, we can get you this super attractive rate, but the transaction can't close. Well, okay, you promised them a rate, but you couldn't deliver, right? The thing you're promising first is that it's going to close, right? I think that's kind of what you're looking at, right? So I think a lot of my clients, especially right now, when deals are further and farther in between, they're like, well, man, whether it's for the client's interest or their own interest, right? I need to make sure this thing closes, whether it's in good times or bad times. And I think people want that peace of mind, right? I think a lot of times in life, depending on the service, whether it's a haircut, whether it's, you name it, whether it's a pair of shoes, sometimes you pay a little bit more because you could count on it. Hey, I know this is going to work. This is going to come through, right? And so I think that's kind of what separates, right, some of the top producers from some of the that 80%, because again, the clients are the loan officers, or even it could be even a borrower, right? If you're just shopping for the lowest rate, you might not be getting the best quality.
Yeah.
And in the end, it might cost you more money down the road. You know what I mean? It's like the expression, people are so busy watching their pennies and not counting their dollars. So I think what happens in situations like that, like if there was an airline, for instance, and there was a flight from here to Paris, you wanted to fly to Paris, France, and you can get there for $299 round trip,
right?
But they had a really, really poor record of landing on time, of landing at all. And there was another airline that
kind of like Spirit, right?
Correct. Yeah. I'll pay extra not to fly Spirit. You know what I mean? I'll go Greyhound before I have to fly Spirit. You know what I mean? All due respect, Spirit.
Or even better, fly private.
Or fly private. That could also be. I don't want to get to any place that bad. You know what I mean? But I think that's really what it is. So it's just, you just have to find your value, what you value more. If you value just being a transactional based person in the business that you're in, you could do that.
I'd rather pay more to get better
guaranteed
quality
results.
Service results.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so that's
because it's like us, like here at the Mortgage Guys, like we're one of your, we send you a lot of business. We're one of your top brokers. And we sent you pretty good business last year.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's why I don't have to fly Spirit.
Yeah.
Of the business you guys send. Thank you. Yeah.
So like here at the Mortgage Guys, we're not going to give you 100% split. We're not going to give loan officers the highest split, but we give them the most value. We have culture. We have the best environment. You've seen The Office and all that stuff. So when times are good, I remember 2020, 2021, I've mentored. I helped a lot of LOs get to where they got.
Agreed.
And then when the times got a little bit rough, I had a few of them that turned their back on me. And I know this happened to a lot of brokers.
Sure.
Because they wanted to get an extra 5%, because they wanted to get an extra 10%, and so on. But you also saw, I'm sure you saw today, a lot of new faces, like a lot of new LOs that we have. We have a new LO right there. But you saw how we've added a lot of new faces, right? And that's been kind of like, for me, the same way as you. You're adding more accounts. I'm adding more realtors, more LOs. Obviously,
Correct.
some, they wanted that 5% extra or 10% extra, and they left. But then people find out it's not greener on the other side. So how do you feel about that? And why do you think a lot of loan officers right now, because we're talking about mortgage, are jumping from place to place? And what is your experience? Because I'm sure loan officers that leave me, the Mortgage Guys, they go somewhere else and they try to work with you, or they work with you. How much different is it? And what's up with that behavior?
So in regards, the expression, the grass isn't always greener. Grass is grass. Grass is grass. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at, right? Grass is grass, and how you tend to that grass, right, really isn't so much dictated by the environment that you're in, right, as it's dictated by the individual, then the environment, right? I think sometimes what happens, and like I said earlier, just having the experience of dealing with some turbulent times in this industry, right? I think some people might panic a little bit a little bit quicker than others, or maybe they feel a change of pace is necessary, right? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, right? It could be other instances where finger pointing and not doing this. It's a myriad of different reasons, right? And sometimes people just want a change of pace, right? I think ultimately what it comes down to, and I always joke about this, but you know what I mean? When someone says, hey, man, borrower's going to cancel or realtor's going to cancel or this, well, it's a free country. That's the great part about it. If you feel you need to do something, then do it, right? But ultimately at the end of the day, right, you got to live with that decision, and you got to move in on it, right? You guys right now have added a lot of new faces, and you guys are continuing to grow, and you guys are selling the culture of what you guys are doing. I've had people leave me. There were some AEs that we hired in 23, and unfortunately they're no longer with us, and I don't take it personally. If they felt that there was someplace better for them to do their trade, then they should do it. And I wish them no hard feelings, and we move on. When it comes, and I've seen this
are they doing better though?
I don't check. I hope so. I wish them nothing but the best. But at the end of the day, they're gone. And
if you were to guess, are they doing better?
I don't know. I wouldn't even guess. I would just be like, man, I'm gonna focus on what I have going in front of me, and see what goes from there.
I'll check on them for you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I've seen at all different offices. I've seen a lot of brokers have loan officers go from one place to another place, and for me, I'm indifferent, right? Just hey, it is what it is. I don't want to be stuck in the middle. But what I tell them is, when you do what you do, or you make a move that you need to make, at the end of the day, grass is grass, right? Grass is grass, and how you handle it, right? How you perform is going to be on you. Yeah. So I think that's kind of.
But the way I see it is, if you're with the best, if you're rolling with the best, and you can do good, what makes you think you're going to do good not being with the best?
Wow.
Like you're the best at what you do. I'm the best at what I do. So if
Right.
they can win with us, what makes them think they're going to win somewhere else?
Answering for myself, when, so I somebody leaves or somebody, I'll self-reflect and what could I have done better to foster that relationship. There was one AE in particular where I was like, man, I think I could have done a better job. I also think that AE could have spoken up more, right, and
Yeah.
asked for help more.
Yeah.
But I also look in the mirror and think, man, you could have done a better job in checking up on that AE a little bit more,
Yeah.
right? And so again, like I said, we're constantly learning, and unfortunately we learn.
But there's also so much we can be checking up on people, especially as you grow your company. You can't check up on everybody all the time.
Right. I think
Because you're gonna throw water at whatever throws water back at you, right? Like if you can't
Right.
you can't just be the only one checking up on them, encouraging them. Hey man, what's up, buddy? Hey, what do you need? Hey, what do you need? Like at least for me, what I do is I focus on people that are showing me that they're serious, people that are executing, people that are working hard. Like I have a lot of people here. Like I see, for example, like I'll bring up Patty. Like Patty, I see her on the phone all day. She's on the phone. She shows up. She's grinding, and she's showing me that she's like serious about her work. She's
Right.
serious about her clients. Is she perfect? No.
Right.
Am I perfect? No.
Right.
Are you perfect?
No, God, no.
But I see her hustling, right?
Mhm.
So when she needs help or when something comes up, of course I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna check up on her when I need to check up on her because I see her working. But then there's other people that they're not working, they're not making the calls, they're not showing up to training, they're not focused. So of course, attention is going to go to those that are earning it. And it's just hard to keep everybody happy. So eventually some people, they get comfortable, they start quitting, and then they get mad because they're not getting attention. But that's just kind of my rule. Like, why? Like, I just have to focus on whoever is showing me that they're serious.
Right. I mean, that's what you've chosen, right? So everyone's going to have a almost kind of like a standard of what they look for, right? You know, I'm a big believer in sometimes relationships come to an end, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a business relationship. Sometimes things just come to an end, right? And maybe it's right people, wrong time. You know, it was right time because the climate was a certain way and now it's a wrong time. And I think, you know, speaking for myself, I just got to keep it moving, whether it was friendships or relationships, you know, whether I was to blame for it ending. I think that's really just kind of how I look at it. You know what I mean? And, you know, and then you just see what happens. And, you know, I'm a competitive person. So, you know, my spirit, and you're a competitive, you're a ultra competitive person, right? Like your spirit is to go out and be like, hey, dude, you know what I mean? Then, you know, I'm just going to show you that much more. And that's kind of it. And that's what drives you, right? That's okay. Competitiveness drives a lot of successful people. And obviously, you know, it's what drives you as well. So, you know, you just pick up.
You have a lot of haters?
I don't know. I don't know, you know.
Well, the top always has a lot of haters. Nobody hates on the bottom.
Right. That's true. You know, there was a Reggie Jackson quote, you know, great New York Yankee. And he said that, you know, they don't boo nobodies. Sometimes I hate myself. You know, so yeah, I do have a lot of haters. I think I might be first on that list. Sometimes I hate the way I do certain things, right? The difference is when I hate on myself versus when someone else hates on me is at least I can kind of understand why.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, if somebody dislikes me, you know, if a person dislikes me because they know me, I could live with that better than a person who dislikes me and they don't even know me.
Yeah, but then people might know you, and then they start hating on you. Then they leave you, and then they start trying to convince the world that you're not who you really are, and you can't really control that because they're gone, but they're over there, like, you know, just spreading the wrong word.
But what can I control? Who I am.
Yeah.
Right? And if some people are able to be influenced and convinced by that, then, you know, I got to look at it and say, hey, man, best of luck. Maybe it wasn't. You know, that happened to me in 21, I lost an employee, really good guy. Guy was a good guy. He left, classy, the whole nine.
Everybody does.
Right. And the person who got them to leave the company was making all these false promises. And I knew because I know this person. I'm like, man, this is not going to be true. But I felt like if I tried to convince the person of this, it was going to look like I had sour grapes. And I didn't want to do that. And the person ended up leaving. And just as I thought was going to happen, it didn't work out for them. The promises that were made didn't come true. The company was about as unstable as the person running it. This person's got a lot of problems. And the guy ended up coming back, and the guy came back, and I welcomed him back with open arms. I didn't give him the same position that he had when he left.
Yeah, but he didn't leave and started talking all this shit about it.
Oh, no,
right?
this guy's a class act. This guy is about as classy as they are.
I think that's the key right there.
You know, I think we're all victims.
I have people that have left, and a day later they're talking shit about me, and they leave in good. They leave in apparently good terms, and you know I give him stuff, take him out to dinner the day before, and then they're talking shit the next day. Like that's really like that's somebody that's very unethical, and. Like you have people like that, and you have people that leave in good terms and very professional, and those, of course, like I want them back. Of course, I want to help them if they want to come back. But you know, it's different scenarios.
You know, I really, in the instances that I've had where I don't know if I've really had too many instances, fortunately, of somebody leaving and saying bad things, but it has happened. And again, like I just really just kind of, you know, the people that know me and and like the way I do things and like working with me, they're gonna stick. And,
Well,
and
I'm
the
gonna
ones that
make
don't-
sure that you get more haters,
All right.
because
Okay. Let me drink some more Red Bull then.
we're gonna make you we're gonna blow you up right here. The Chris Calderon 13. You're gonna blow up on social media, and there's a lot of people on social media, a lot of lenders out there that are promoting themselves and doing annoying videos, and they think they're cool, and I don't really dig their content. I think you're gonna go out there and save the social media world to having some good having some good lending content over there.
I think I would just like to keep my content, in sense of just keeping it true to
You're
myself.
not gonna do any funny videos screaming at the camera and dancing around like that.
No, I don't. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think the videos, I would just like to keep them authentic as to who I am, and just really kind of stick to the fundamentals. I'm not really like a gimmicky guy. Like, there's an expression, you know what I mean? Don't tell me about the labor, show me the baby. Right. And so I just want to be direct and to the point. A lot of my clients are always like, man, you're always so quick, and just you want to get off the phone quick and move on. Yeah. It's just tell me what you want.
Yeah.
Just tell me what you want. And I think that's kind of going to be my approach. I'm not going to try to be something that I'm not, because I think people will see through that in 2 seconds. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make on social media, regardless of what it is that you're doing. When you try to be someone that you're not, I think people could sniff it out, especially the people that really, really know you. So just kind of stick to who you are. Some people are more comfortable in front of cameras than others. Some people, are naturals. But at the end of the day, if you just stick to who you are, it'll sort itself out.
Yeah. So Chris, to end this, I want to ask you this. You've been a top AE for the longest. I mean, number one for the last 4 years, but now you're a managing partner at Forward Lending. So what does that mean? What are you at Forward Lending? Are you like the top dog right there? Like
No, I have a tremendous partner and a tremendous management team and tremendous operations team and tremendous sales team. Honestly, like, I think I'm just really blessed to have put together a really, really good team. I think if there was a second strength, remember when I was talking about earlier, if God was like, hey, Chris, if I can give you, one attribute, I think the second attribute, I'd be like, God, since you're handing stuff out, if you could, make me a good team builder. And so I would say that. And, I just have a lot of trust in them, and they do a fantastic job. And so that makes my job easier. So no, my partner, I think what's really, and you and Syl have this dynamic, your weaknesses are her strengths, you know what I mean? And your strengths are her weaknesses, right? And, it's okay to disagree. I think my business partner and I, we disagree sometimes, right? But sometimes I walk away and like, yeah, man, you got a point. Let's do it that way. Or sometimes it might be vice versa. So I never look at it in terms of that. But, if things go wrong, like I said, I think I should, bear the brunt of the responsibility. I think that's really important. I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's where leadership is about. The glory and all that stuff, that's the easy part. But, be willing to say, dude, if we suck or if we fuck up, that's on me.
And you're still signing up a lot of brokers, right? You're looking
Absolutely,
to sign up more brokers?
That's absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
In how many states?
So we lend in 42 states, I think. I mean, there's some states I'm like, man, we'll never do a loan there. You
Not
know what
Mexico
I mean? The new Mexico, the new one, not the old one, but the new one. Yeah. We do loans in, Yeah.
And what does Forward Lending do differently than other lenders?
I think, if there's one thing that I could say that we do differently, it's our approach, right? I think a lot of times in lending, right, I think it becomes really rigid. And I think that a lot of lenders fail to realize that people don't live their lives to underwriting guidelines.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a borrower who's going to be like, well, I can't deposit this $6,000 cash because one day I might want to get a loan and I'm not going to be able to source it. So I think that's kind of it. Be willing to look outside the box. And so one of the things that I talk about is I really hire the same person over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is the personalities are different per se, right? But hiring the same person over and over again is their work ethic, right? Their open-mindedness, right? Now, some might be more personable than others. Some might be smarter than others, faster at their position than others, right? But I really just hire the same person over and over again. they got to fit the system, right? I can't have it where I have a system and I bring somebody in who's just, a complete 180 of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
They got to fit the system.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big approach.
Yeah. So you did say that we're one of your top accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like how many accounts do you have?
A lot. Like a lot. Like I don't know.
Like 1,000?
No, not that many. No.
Like 500?
Maybe like north, like 90, 100.
Oh, 90, 100.
Yeah. Yeah, like 90, 100, 110. And
So we're like top what?
Top 3. Top 1.
At least top 3.
Yeah, for sure. Top 3. I think,
Because we sent you a lot of business last year, and even though the market got a little harder, we still closed a lot of deals.
Yeah, you guys kept grinding. I think, one of the things, like when you're adding business, right, and you're adding a bunch of brokers, right, and
it's like me adding a lot of new loan officers.
Yeah, now that I think about it, it's got to be more than 90, maybe like 110, 120. But you're gonna have brokers that it might be like a onesie twosie shop, right? So I got a broker, and he's in the city of Arcadia, and the clientele that he caters to isn't really the kind of clientele that we cater to.
Mm-hmm.
I never call the guy, I never visit him, but every now and then he'll call me up with an amazing loan that the banks that he normally uses, and again, he's a onesie twosie guy, just for whatever reason didn't like the loan, and we close it. So you have like I've always said, you've got bricks, right? You guys are a brick. Certain accounts are bricks. And then you have mortar, which is like the smaller accounts or the onesie twosies. But you add them all up, you got a hell of a brick wall. So I think that's kind of really the approach. And then I look at every loan is just as important to a top producer as it is to someone who maybe that might be their only loan for the next couple months. You know,
Right.
It's still equally as important.
Do you have any other mortgage brokers with like an office like us with like the stuff we have?
With a view like this, I have a
well, the whole enchilada, like the bar, the gym.
I have a broker in Santa Fe Springs, and they have a Chick-fil-A in the same parking lot as them. And so it's really convenient that I could park and then go grab a sandwich, you know what I mean? Some fries and a lemonade, and then walk right across and like go visit them without having to get in the car.
Yeah.
But you guys still have the best office. But that office, like, it's pretty clutch. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
it doesn't have the view or the square footage or the good-looking people in it.
Yeah.
But it's
good-looking
solid.
people is important.
Yeah. It's really, really solid. Yeah, it's really yeah. So you guys have by far the best office, the best view, especially on a day like this where it finished raining and the skies are clear. By far, award best office goes to the mortgage guys. But that office with the Chick-fil-A in the parking lot.
And I mean, there has to be a reason, because you said you're the top AE, which means, and then you're in the nation, and then forward lending, and then where you said top 3 at worst, if not top 1,
right?
I mean, hopefully top 2 or 1, but
2 or 1, yeah.
But I mean that shows you, if you're a loan officer right there, reach out, and also like to end this, Chris. It's pretty obvious that you make decent income, right? You make good money.
Yeah, I do all right. Yeah.
Like you make in the M's.
Yeah, that's a great one of my favorite letters in the alphabet. Yes. And
you don't have like a fancy watch or nothing. Can you talk about why that is?
I talk about this watch a lot, and I'm not a very sentimental person. Objects come, objects go. But this watch is a watch I bought right before I got in the mortgage industry, and I think I was making like $2,400 a month, which back in 2002 wasn't that bad. I was 22 years old, so one day there was a jewelry store in the shopping center that I worked at, Don Roberto Jewelers, and I went in there and I bought a watch, and I bought the watch for $450, and at that time, I thought I was doing it, like, oh man, spending some real money. And a couple months later, literally, I ended up getting a job in the mortgage industry, and I very quickly realized that people had tennis shoes, high heels, belts, Mont Blanc pens that cost more than my watch, right? And so I wear this watch as a reminder to remind myself there was a time where $450 was all the money in the world. And so for me, it's just a reminder to remain grounded when you're tired, and I check to see what time it is, you know what I mean? Hey man, continue to work, right? Because there was a time that you had to work your ass off to buy that watch for $450.
Right.
So for me, it's just like a really important keepsake. Like if my house was on fire, you know what I mean? Besides grabbing the cat, you know what I mean? I'd try to grab my watch, you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, it's really, really important to me. And I think to be successful, especially in sales, if money is your only motivation, and obviously we get into sales to make money, but if money is your only motivation, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail quickly, right? And I always tell people, find your motivation, right? My motivation were the people who said, man, you're not going to make it, right? You'll be back.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work out for you. That's my motivation, right? And the money just comes along with it. Another motivation that I have is I love the pain. I love the prep work, I've given everything to this business. I've lost relationships because of it. I've lost friendships, because of it.
Yeah.
There were times, hey, it's so-and-so's birthday this Thursday. Do you want to come? I can't go.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna go on vacation. There's a bachelor party or this and that. I can't go. And these are all personal decisions. Of course I could go.
Yeah.
But I choose not to go.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So for me, it's like I want to give 100%. Right.
Yeah.
At all times. That's my thing. So when people put up posts, and I'm going to get a little mean here, but when people put up posts, and especially when they put up like Kobe, like Mamba mentality, and it's like, bro, this motherfucker, they're the first one to turn a 3-day weekend into a 4-day weekend, or this and that. Like, take that post down. Don't disrespect.
You didn't go
Kobe
see
that way.
his launch, his statue that they did on a couple of weeks ago?
I have season seats. I had to work, and I didn't have to work. I could have gone. But to me, Mama mentality was, no, man, I got clients to see. There's money to be made. I have operations people. I have clients that are relying on me. You know what I mean? Am I better served, sitting, watching a Kobe statue get unveiled? That's not going to make me any money, and it's not going to make them any money. Or am I better served being out there in the field hustling? If that would have been on a Friday night or a Saturday or Sunday, or if it would have been a 3-day weekend and it would have happened on a Monday that we were closed, yeah, I would have been there all day. That wasn't the answer. That wasn't Kobe mentality.
Yeah.
Because if Kobe was alive and there was a statue unveiling of himself, in one city, but he had a game in another, that guy would have been going to his game. Man, we could do this some other time.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. Like, guys, like, I don't care what facet it is in your life, man, you got to go with that killer instinct, right? And there are areas in my life where I got to do better at a killer instinct, right? But when it comes to my career, you know what I mean? I'll put my work ethic up against anybody.
So, bro, look, what I appreciate your friendship so much that,
Likewise.
I reach millions of people a day.
Absolutely.
And what I'm going to do for you as a gift is I'm going to help you go from 100 accounts, more or less, to 200 accounts.
Sure.
So I'm going to add 100 accounts to you through social media. We're going to reach accounts all over the nation.
Let's do it.
So that means double. So I'm going to make you 2 times richer. That's what I'm going to do for you for free.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We'll do that. And
so besides people reaching out to you at the Chris Calderon 13, and it's the Chris Calderon 13 because 13 is your
13 is my lucky number. And guys, not to interrupt you, Albert. And a lot of people have asked me recently, clients, especially last year more than any, like, Chris, what do you suggest? And one of the things I said was, you got to get out of your comfort zone. And you and I have discussed this. I've never been a big social media guy. I've just never been a really big fan of it, right? But, times are changing. And so I can't give people advice and say, hey, man, step out of your comfort zone if I'm not willing to do so myself. So even though being on social media, it might not be my favorite thing or might not be my favorite thing now, it will be. And through having dinners with you or lunches or just whenever we talk on the phone, taking advice from people that are smarter than me, right? And stepping out of my comfort zone. So that's why, I'm doing this. It's like, yeah, you're like, Chris, man, this is the future, right? Hey, the proof is in the pudding. You've shown me, right? So that's one of the reasons, why I'm doing it. It's not to give advice to people that I'm not willing to take myself. And if I'm going to, work on building my social media, I can't think of a better person than you, right, to take guidance from on that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
You got it.
And if there's any brokers right now watching this and you want to start a partnership here with Chris, he's the number one AE for the past 4 years. He's been in the industry for 22 years. He's the top of the top. If there's a deal that there's one place that can close it's with Chris over there at Forward Lending. So I'm going to put all your information below.
Appreciate
Any broker watching this, any state in the nation, because you're approved in over 40 something states.
Correct.
And if he's not approved, I'm sure he could get approved in that extra state. So if no matter where you are in the US, if you're a mortgage broker and you want to partner up with Chris, we're going to put the details below to sign up. Other than your social media, your Instagram right here at the Chris Calderon 13, is there anywhere else where you would like people to reach out to you?
Guys, I'm old-fashioned. Phone is the best way. 818-926-7078. That's my cell. If I don't pick up, just shoot me a quick text and I'll give you a buzz back. That's the best way.
You're gonna get overwhelmed now with all the phone calls.
That's fine. You know what I mean?
All right, guys. Well, brother, thanks again.
thank you so much.
It was a
Appreciate
pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.